What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome to Purple and Gold Bars. I'm your host, Supreme. Today we're gonna dial it down. Not not gonna do any editing, no storytelling, stuff like that. We're just gonna. I kind of want to just talk candidly and just talk about all the things that came to mind during that game, as well as how I'm feeling about the team and what's going forward. So let's just get right into it. Hey, sorry to interrupt. Editor Supreme here. I know I said I wasn't gonna do any editing in here, but I just wanted to take a moment and just gonna set the mood for the video or for the podcast. So yeah, enjoy. I want to start by just kind of tooting my horn a little bit there. As some of you may know, I've been in a lot of Giants channels comment sections this week, throwing a lot of predictions out there. Initially, I had 24-9, and then I had moved to 31-13, and then finally settled on 28-9 somewhere around like the second quarter. I'm glad I wasn't too far off on there. It was pretty decent. When I was in that 31 point mindset, I had given Sam Darnold two passing touchdowns, um, one lost fumble, not an interception. I didn't put it down as an interception. I had like a fumble, something like that, like a strip sack going his way. Then I had one field goal, a defensive touchdown, and then an Aaron Jones touchdown. I kept kind of like inserting all these variables and thinking how it would logically play out, and I just was like, this is where I put the Vikings to be at, right? And we basically pulled that off outside that field goal, which is pretty cool in my opinion. So I like to start off with that. I don't want to spend a lot of time gloating and bashing the Giants because um, they're where we were like last year and the year before. If you look at the 2 years that we had, just the last 2 years, right? Going into the first year of KOC, we had new at almost everything coaching staff, all the coaching staff, essentially. We had new players. We were replacing a philosophy on defense, so we had brought in new players and drafted accordingly. And what and we saw what happened there. What 13 wins, right? So we overachieved. We entered that flow state that season and managed to overachieve, whether that was through the overall play of Kirk Cousins, which was incredible that year, as well as um, all the entire team kind of elevated. Like there was very little gelling, kind of like miscommunication, kind of like everybody seemed to just hop on pace, and it was just like everybody had been dancing together for a long time, and they just were capable of like. Have you ever seen those like really really big like ballroom dancing uh, videos and whatnot on YouTube, or where they where you see like all these people just going like pretty intricate like in their like classical ballroom dancing, but there's so many of them, and it kind of looks like one of those old spiral scopes where there's just like so many freaking couples going, but they're always just like never really hitting each other, and it just kind of works, right? And that's kind of what happened with us in that first season, and we overachieved. Where a lot of the times we should have had maybe a growing pain, it just worked out. Both players were on the same page, and it just led to a great season. And we didn't experience as many growing pains as anticipated. Looking at year two, we had all the growing pains to start the year. We were leading the league in unforced basically everything, turnovers, everything. We were like the worst, right? So, and it wasn't until around the San Francisco game that we really put it together, and that kind of showed what potential this team had going forward. And had Kirk not gone down, we may have made a really I don't know if we would have gone all the way, but we would have made a really good push in the playoffs, which would have been valuable lessons learned for this team in general, and more importantly, like KOC and his play calling, because as mind boggling as it's been at points, like I understand why. Like he never called plays before. He's learning on the job. There's gonna be mistakes, and I understand that, so I forgive it, and I know that to get through that time of his play calling career, where there's going to be a lot of nuanced situations where he's got to make the mistake to learn from first, so that in the future he doesn't make that mistake. It's okay, right? So it's okay for him for that to happen. I get it, right? So, but I don't want that stuff to be lingering, right? Because I don't want to be focused on trying to clean that stuff up when we should be focusing on dialing in JJ, getting him up to speed, and hopefully not putting a lot on his plate. Very similar to what we had to do with Sam Darnold, right, today. And then just allow the team to basically be the force that keeps us in games and gives him the time to gain confidence, acclimate to the speed of the NFL, and become the quarterback that we see. So I'm excited to see what happens. Um, Oh yeah. So I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is that if you look at those 2 years, that was like the high side and the low side of what the Giants could be, right? This year, just like I was like in my preview video, I anticipated that growing pains were going to be the deciding factor in this game, and I took the position that because our Vikings had already gone through this in the last 2 years, that we're not going to have as many careless, unforced errors as we did last year. And as a result, we're going to just be a little bit more consistent coming out the gate. And we're going to make just enough. We're going to make less errors than the Giants do, and that's what's going to be the massive difference. The rest of the team, agreed with everybody's analysis that we're top notch on defense, and we proved it. Our O line, like I suspected, didn't massively fall off. I know we saw some question marks from Mark Ingram, or from Ingram in the preseason, but I was confident that we didn't drop from a fringe top 10 O line to a bottom 10 O line over the off season. So I knew there was going to be some growing pains there with Mark Ingram. Sometimes there are players out there that in preseason or in practice they seem to struggle, or they don't quite perform the way that you want them to. But somehow in the real game, it's like they're able to switch into like, okay, now I really got to go mode, and they perform better. Maybe Ingram isn't going to be the type of guy that goes from playing like that and having concerns about him every other game to who's like a top five interior guard in the NFL overnight because he just tries harder in games. I'm not saying that either, but maybe it's just enough to where those concerns are are minimized to a point where it's not going to be a massive concern going forward. And then through this season, his development, maybe next year he'll just be won't be as inconsistent, and maybe he won't be a question mark. I don't know about you guys, but I remember when we threw Darius in. I don't even remember, 2 years ago or whatever it was. Our left guard or our left tackle went down, and we threw him in. He was brand new, and I remember at the time I was very really invested in the team and what was going game to game. So when I saw him go in the game and struggle, and then struggle for like the rest of the season, I was like, he's not it. And look what he's become now, right? The experiences, the growing pains that he had to endure during that time, maybe being thrust into that position was the thing that he needed to like fast forward all the lessons that he needed to learn to where he is now. And look at him now; he's a top 10 tackle. So what are maybe Ingram can settle into a top 15, borderline top 12 interior guard that's far more than serviceable than anyone gives him credit. So I'm happy about the O line, and yeah. So I guess maybe to wrap up that point where um, why I don't want to rag on and so that's why I don't want to rag on the Giants, because I see a lot of us in them. They have a lot of new and they have a lot of transition going on right now, and I'm sure that in the next they're about to have a reset. They may lose a lot of their coaching staff going forward, so they're in that same state that we were a couple of years ago. So I don't want to dogpile them on them, because I know what it feels like to be in that spot where you're so where you're so when you become disillusioned, and when your hope and your blind faith kind of just completely wears off, and you start questioning and the doubt starts to set in. So like I totally get it, and so I'm not going to dogpile on the Giants, but I'm very happy that my X factor proved to be the difference, yeah, in the game. um so let's move on to some conclusions, like what I like and what I don't like about yesterday's game. We'll start with what I like. On offense, for me, I wasn't really surprised with any of the three facets of football yesterday from the Vikings. I'm really confident that my read is pretty good on the team. Um, so I was happy that they were on that above average of what I expected them to play like this game. So I don't have any massive concerns on offense. Like we started off a little sketchy, or what you could say, um, but I just knew that it was just going to take a little bit of time for us to settle in. We saw that in the Chiefs Ravens game, and then the Eagles Packers games. There was a lot of rust that was gonna happen. And those first two drives, that first like half of the first quarter, was where I was the most worried um, about my read on the Vikings. But it proved to be. I remember just thinking, um, just relax. Not enough time has passed for any data to be extrapolated from this right now. This is all expected. I knew that when it came to the offense and the offensive line, they weren't going to have like 100% game where there was no penetration allowed, and there was not going to be any issues, and basically Sam Darnold would be back there literally picking his nose trying to decide who to throw to, right? I didn't have that that delusion. I anticipated that there were going to be some sacks and some pressures, and we saw that. Like around maybe I anticipated more out of their pass rush. So I'm extremely happy that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. So it's a good sign for me. So it means that as a whole in the O line, the confidence there is going to build. So all these issues that maybe the pressure or everything that was maybe starting to build with with Ingram now is starting to dissipate, and maybe he can kind of just settle in, and it might, I expect some ups and downs, of course, but um, maybe it's not going to be as bad as people were saying before the season started. I'm glad that the offense took everything that they gave us and didn't try to force something. I didn't want to see um, KOC go out there and put on the pressure or the expectations like the Rams did on Matthew Stafford, where he threw a ton, and their path to winning that game was definitely through Matthew Stafford's arm. So I didn't want to see KOC kind of put too much, and What I wanted to see to start the game is I wanted to see an extremely conservative offense for the first quarter, and I wanted to see a lot of runs, a lot of pitches, a lot of screen passes, dump offs within that like 2.5 second mark before their pass rush could even get going, right? That way we could kind of build long, boring drives that will tire them out leading into the second, third, and fourth, where our play action was gonna light them up with JJ and Addison, right? So I anticipated a really, really, really strict playbook for that first quarter, or maybe that first two drives. But it seemed like KOC right off the bat, he totally had confidence in Sam Darnold. It didn't seem like any part of the playbook was off bounds to him or was out of bounds. They didn't. They just let him play and was like, "You take what is given to you," which is like in hindsight, like yeah, that's exactly what you kind of want to do because you want to. That's what you want a quarterback to kind of progress through, and you want essentially for him to do through the four quarters. Because if done well, you win, right? So, I was surprised that he had that much confidence in him. And it kind of made me come to this like realization at that point of the game. I was like, did San Fran fix Sam Darnold? Like, did they do all the stuff, all the groundwork behind the scenes in training camp, in quarterback meetings, in individual practices, to kind of like rework him as a quarterback, and then work on his mental? Then like they just never, and like the all that was missing with him was like maybe um, that he just didn't do the reps. You know what I mean? Like they were like, okay, we got all this theory. We spent all this time working in a class. We spent the last, 6 weeks, and now we got the 1 week of theory, like, and we're just going to go out there and no, I mean, like we got a week of practical, you know what I mean? Where you're going to go put everything that you learned into practice. Like, maybe they did all that work. They just didn't have the ability to put him out there because they had such a good situation in Brock Purdy, and they're just so focused on winning a Super Bowl, rightfully so, right? So I'm like, whoa. And so it was kind of cool to see Sam Darnold, his progression in that first quarter. Like, you could see that he was a little nervous, a little shaky in that first drive, those first two drives, and then he started settling in. He made one completion, then another, and then you could just start seeing his confidence building, which is great to see. And I'm thinking there's going to be a lot with our team. I know there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. For me, I don't really care about the record or the scores in each games, to be brutally honest, because for me, I see every game as a practice, as not a practice, but like as development time for our team to put things together. Whether that's on the play calling side with KOC kind of ironing out the kinks of his play calling, and where sometimes he gets a little bit too cheeky. It's like, he gets that little, like that Dennis the Menace grin. He gets a little bit of that sometimes in games, and it's like, it's like he gets this like idea. I'm gonna try this like, this like whatever, and then he pulls it out and it just doesn't, and it like backfires, and then we just stall a drive because of it. And it's like, no, okay, you need to learn that there's a time and a place for that, and like, but the majority of the time you need to have consistent play calling so that it breeds muscle memory, and you can eventually just get to a point where all that becomes second nature, and you can really start focusing on the nuances of the game that playoff teams and then eventually Super Bowl contender teams need to start focusing on, like what the Lions are dealing with right now. Like the Lions yesterday, like in my preview of my division preview and prediction video, I talked about how I don't the Lions are at a point where like my Raptors were a few years ago, where I literally did not tune into any single regular games because I knew the team was so good that they were going to make the playoffs. And I never watched any season game until um, and I didn't watch any regular season game, and I only started tuning in the playoffs. And I feel like the Lions have a little bit of that where they're going to make the playoffs, right? That's not a question. As barring massive injury to key players, of course, because like that can happen. That'll derail any team, good or bad, right? Like, of course. But barring that, I feel like that it's just their roster's so good. They have like they're there. You know what I mean? Where they're just starting to figure out the Rubik's cube that is the playoffs. That once you figure that out, that's what that knowledge and that poise that comes from that experience is what we call like championship pedigree. And they're just on the road of gaining it and winning that first Super Bowl. So like that's where I want my Vikings to be. So with this season with the Rams, I was like with this season with the Lions, I want to see them win playoff like games because last year they lost playoff like games in the regular season. They lost to the Ravens. They lost to the Packers. They lost to Danny. I think was it Tommy DeVito that came in the Giants and beat them. Was it them or was it either way? Yeah, it was the Lions. Yeah, I think, or was it the Packers? Either way, they had playoff like games where the Lions lost, and then when they reached those similar time games in the playoffs, they just didn't have the pedigree to win those games, and that's why they lost when they did. Like a few minor changes in coaching or maybe some minor adjusting would have probably won them that game. So you know what I mean. So this year, I really wanted to see how the Lions um, dealt with those playoff like games, and last night they won. So um, I want my Vikings to get there, and for us to get there, we need to spend this entire year. Like I said, I envision it more like like development time to get the roster to where we're fringe like that, minus the quarterback, of course. Where next year when we plug JJ McCarthy in, that team on top with JJ will get us close to where the Lions were last year, right? And then the following year, we're where the Lions are this year, and we're just pushing for freaking for to end this this drought of to end this to end us not having a Super Bowl. To finally get us to finally get us to a Super Bowl and win us a Super Bowl. So when it came to the team, I saw a lot of that on all three phases of the team. The offensive line were made some mistakes, but they were like gelling better this season. They played really really well. Our receivers, they did exactly what they needed to do when it was time that we needed to complete a pass. JJ was there, Addison was there, um, Johnny Munt was there. You know what I mean? Like Aaron Jones was there, right? So like the offense it was humming for lack of a better way. The defense, woo the defense. Not, let this. We need to talk about this defense, okay? Last year, I did not know what to expect with the Brian Flores defense and where it was going to go. And then as the season emerged, and it was clear that it wasn't going to be like any defense that we've ever seen as a Vikings as Vikings fans, or from what I've seen really in the NFL. Not that comes to mind, right? At least in modern since I started. So I started like in when 08, 07, 08, right after Adrian Peterson, right? So like there's probably some more examples of teams maybe doing what Brian Flores has done in the past and in in different iterations and different philosophies, right? But so what had me scared was like, whoa, this is basically unproven. Brian Flores is out there trailblazing, and he's got some sort of vision for how he wants this defense to work. And all I could do last year was go, well, let's see how it goes. I can't. It's too late now. We ain't changing the coordinator. We ain't changing the philosophy. Let's see how it goes and if he's got something. And it. I think our defense shocked a lot of people last year, and I could see the foundational, in flashes of what it could be. And like a lot has been said about our defense is that Brian Flores did the best he could with what the pieces that he had. And that's why we probably saw a lot of the blitzing and maybe just working on that last year. Because he didn't have another, the players like he has this year to facilitate maybe his other, to facilitate the other visions that he has for how he wants the defense to play. And now he has them. Van Ginkel, wow, okay. Um, I could rave about our D line last night because they played great, and um, I am definitely sold on the Brian Flores Hellfire defense. I think that in a few years, or maybe even as early as next year, we're going to start to see people try to make it their own, and we're going to start seeing a lot of other teams start bringing in either packages that mimic that style or straight philosophy changes by some defensive coordinators that are looking to switch things up or something. I can just see that it's gonna it's gonna carve. I can just see that Brian Flores is gonna carve you know is gonna carve his defense. Is I can just see that Brian Flores is going to carve a place for his defense in the NFL. So I'm extremely happy and optimistic because when it comes to teams like the Giants, good teams are supposed to win the way that we won, right? We're not supposed to be playing games like the Bears had yesterday against teams that we should have won, right? All I heard all offseason was the Bears are going to be, in the Super Bowl. Like, dumbass Nick Wright freaking predicted the Bears to be in the Super Bowl. And I'm looking at him like, do you forget that, like, growing pains are a thing? Like unforced errors, turnovers, miscommunication, lack of fucking like chemistry, cohesion, whatever you want to talk about it, gelling. Things are gonna go wrong when you think everything's gonna go right. That's just Murphy's law. And I was saying, and I will continue to say that their organization, the Bears organization, has totally disregarded growing pains in their equation to. I think the Bears organization has completely disregarded um, growing pains in their calculations to their predictions and what this team could be. Yes, I totally agree. They have an extremely talented team that hasn't played together. And yeah, the majority of the players that have played together are on the defense. And look how well they played. Everybody else, how do they look? Right? I, a few people were looking at me crazy for for predicting a 5-win season from the Bears. And I'm like, growing pains are going to be a massive factor for this team in year 1, year 2, and year 3. Year 1 is going to be the worst because not only are you going to have growing pains from like the unforced stuff that is just like teams and players get cut for these sort of freaking mistakes, mental lapses, whatever you call, like all like the false starts, the all that sort of stuff that comes from experience playing together, knowing what your team's gonna do, and just that experience. All those easily fixable growing pains are gonna come. Then you're gonna have growing pains where you're gonna have to adjust to um, to the new offense, the new scheme. You guys have a team built around a running quarterback, and now you have Caleb Williams. So you guys have to really change your mindset of thinking and overcome your muscle memory that you guys have developed for the last 3 years, and then play differently. That's gonna freaking take time to happen, right? That's why you see games like the Bears and the Titans where everybody said, "Oh, this is gonna be a mollywop." They basically predicted that the game was gonna go the way that our game went was going to go the way the Bears game was going to go in favor of the Bears, and the way that the Bears game went was going to be just a mess in what we were going to experience this game and probably lose is what almost everybody would have said, right? But what happened? The more experienced team had less growing pains, and their talent and development started to show. And so it was irrelevant, the question marks at quarterback with Sam Darnold, which brings me to I guess to wrap up the talk on the offense, because as for me, I guess I was the least confident in my read on Sam Darnold. I essentially was playing Moneyball with his position and saying if he can throw between like 190, 220 yards, two touchdowns, one pick, or one touchdown, no interceptions, and just keep it clean, consistent all year, I think he'll have a good year. And he outperformed that, right? So I love what I'm seeing about the offense. The defense looks incredible. Uh, so far exceeds my expectations. Granted, it is against an offense that's got a lot of work going for them, and there was a lot of mistakes that we capitalized on because of their inexperience and yeah, with their inexperience. So it's going to be different from week to week. So next week is going to be a big test for our defense, but I am confident now that this defense and what Brian Flores has got going on can match up with anybody. And I am so much more confident in next year and the year after in his defense when and when the JJ McCarr JJ Mc and when the JJ McCarthy era truly starts. Oh my gosh, I am ecstatic. Special teams, really really good as well. There were a couple things that maybe could have been worked on. They kind of backed us up, left us in a couple of tight spots after the punt and stuff. Maybe some. I don't know if there's really much. I think there's a lot of growing pains. Every team's gonna experience with these new punt and kickoff and punt rules, right? So I don't think there's anything to worry about there. What I didn't like, what I didn't like about the offense. What did I not like about this offense? Yeah, there really wasn't much. I guess you could say, because I really like to judge by the mistakes rather than the good stuff. Because then when you judge stuff, I find that when I judge stuff by all the great things that happen, I start then skewing my perspective, and then my read becomes a little bit biased, and then I start becoming way too over optimistic, and I don't want that. So I like to focus on the bad. So there was for the we allowed there were some pressure issues, you know what I mean? But like I said, I don't expect this O line or any O line to begin with to ever play a game where they're 1,000% like perfect, where there's like no freaking hurries, no where their quarterback doesn't take any contact after the throw, where there's just complete, I never see like no sacks, no nothing. I don't expect that ever from an offensive line. I don't think anybody should. But um I think they played a uh, I think they overachieved to where I think the O line is going to perform overall in the season, which is a good thing. I think this type of team you need to overachieve, and then on the really good teams is you're going to probably play closer to the average. So next week is going to be a good test for this O line. Um, although the pass rush for the Giants is no joke, right? Like um, so maybe there is more credit to be given to the O line than maybe I am giving, but I need to be realistic, and I need to try to stay objective, right? So that I don't going forward start giving you bombastic, ridiculous takes that just make no sense. Because then I just start sounding like a jackass, and I don't want that either. I want to give you guys valuable insights that I think are gonna help build your your opinions, and hopefully give you guys confidence in this team going forward. What I didn't like about the defense, the hands. No, I'm joking. They could have had a couple picks there. Um, the defense looked great. I feel like the defense is right in. Just started the game and everything right in form. I don't think there's really much that I would want to worry about. We did. There were a couple of moments. Defense, there were a couple of moments where where I expected them to, get that 3-and-out, and they ended up getting another three possessions and then going 3-and-out on the second attempt, right? And they held them to field goals, and they got a defensive touchdown. So for me, they're right there. They overachieved a little bit. Like, I don't expect defensive touchdowns from the defense. From when I expect a good defense, I don't expect defensive touchdowns. They're nice, of course. They're the cherry on top. They're the gravy, I guess you could say. Like, it's nice to have, but it's not necessary, because if you do a really, really, really good job at minimizing them and keeping them to field goals and just consistently getting them off the field on third down, does you know what I mean? The pick sixes and the scoring on the defensive side isn't a massive factor in my opinion. So I am extremely happy. I don't think that there's much I didn't like, if any, from the defense. The special teams, like I said a little bit, was just there was a couple moments where they kept put us in an unfavorable starting positions, but the offense totally picked it up in those situations. So I really like what I see, and I'm happy with the mistakes that we have, because those mistakes aren't like we had last year to start the year. These are the type of mistakes that I want to see from a team that's building consistency, a team that I want to see in the future push for playoffs and deep and even Super Bowls. So, I for me, I'm liking everything that I see. Um, those are some of the observations that I have, and what I want to see going forward, because I really want, like I said, I really don't care about the score or the final record this season. All I want is every game to be full of learning experiences on all factors, from the play calling all the way down to every position, because I want those lessons to be learned this year, so then next year, right? Like, I can't emphasize that enough, because I don't want a failure year in year one of JJ McCarthy. I don't want to see a year where at the end of the season, um, our team and the situation, you know, had him, had him look like he's not, had him look like a bust or something like that, because he was always put in situations where it was all on him through his arm to win. You know what I mean? Like, his arm growing mistakes, and he's just has to be the guy. I don't want to see that. I don't want. I want to. I want to see a team like what I expect to see this year working for Sam Darnold. I want them to be in there and be the team, be the thing that helps them grow in year one and develop into the player that eventually takes over, and then he's the reason that that we're led to the promised land, for lack of a better way of saying it. So going forward, I really want to see that all these games we're put into really, into adverse positions. I want to see us handle bad positions, bad situations versus good teams, bad situations, good situations versus bad teams, because the way that we handle that is going to show where we are as a team. Right? I don't care about the quarterback play, because if he can just come up, like I said, throw 190 yards, one touchdown every game, I'll be extremely happy with that. Like, that's what I want. I will be. That's not even a lot to ask for. Okay, so that's like 12 touchdowns no interceptions, and like freaking 2,800, 3,000 yards. Like I really want like the focus to be on the team development for next year, right? So I think Sam can definitely provide us that, and he shouldn't be. After I saw what I saw yesterday, I don't think that's a question, and I think as the weeks go forward, by like week 3 or 4, I think that is going to solidify, or that take is going to solidify in my mind that I have nothing to worry about Sam Darnold. And so going forward, I want to see those situations come and go, and I want to see us either succeed um, or put a valiant attempt at it. You know what I mean? Like when we're put down in, in a situation where we're playing the 49ers and we're going into the fourth quarter and we're down 10 points. How we have to put it together on all three levels, or where we have to score, we have to come up with a stop, and then we have to work clock management to win the game against a solid team that's going to be freaking really, really coming for us, right? And then succeed or fail, because both outcomes mean that it's footage, it's lessons learned that are only going to make us good in the future. So that's what I want to see going forward and what I expect from this team every week. And yeah, my overall grade for the team, I guess you could say, because they definitely overachieved, I'm going to give them an A+. The offense, I'm going to give an A. The defense, I'm going to give an A+, and the special teams, I'm going to give an A as well. Like, I loved what I saw yesterday. Um, and then let's see here. Things I wrote a whole bunch of, like, I was just like writing a bunch of things during the game to try to remind me of the good things and the bad things that I was watching. And I think one thing that I see here that I wrote down was that the questions about our O line should have either, if not completely been silenced, they should be definitely tempered down to a point where the biggest voices in regards to the O line will just kind of now zip their mouth and wait to see how it goes, because they didn't anticipate it to go this way. So, especially against Dexter Lawrence in the inside. It's not like we have like a TJ Watt coming on the outside, or you know what I mean, and it's going to be O'Neal or Darisaw watching that outside. No, this is coming from the middle, from one of the best D tackles in the league, and we held up. So I think that those questions should be silenced for the time being, and by week 4, if everything is still going the same, I don't think it should be brought up, to be honest. So um, big factor this year. It seems that the like I was talking about and I've been harping about growing pains leading up to the week 1 and in preseason to my friends, and then when I started making videos, that yeah, I really want to see the types of growing pains that we're going to experience as a team, and if they've been reduced by any fashion. You know, are we going to come out and lead the league in interceptions or in turnovers and all this stuff like we did last year, and just look extremely sloppy and just look like we're discombobulated out there? We didn't see that. The growing pains that we saw were more uh, were not those. There were some of those, a little bit of unforced errors here and there, but it wasn't like last year. So like in comparison, I don't think that going forward is we have to worry about. But what I do think we have, like, there is still a little bit of, there's going to be some growing pains on now that that's kind of a little bit behind us, and we're going to start moving away from making less and less unforced errors and costing us games because of it. That we're going to start seeing growing pains in specific positions or in the philosophy of the defense, and trying to execute and trying to execute the game plan on offense and on defense. So where, for example, where um, we want our offense to go and create a drive, we might stall out, or we might make these maybe some timing mistakes, or whatever it is. Maybe a situation where an audible needed to be called, and then it didn't. Things like that are going to start to come up, which isn't, which is where we want our which is where we want our growing pains to be this year, so that next year we have less of them, And again, tying back to my whole philosophy and what I want to see from this team going forward this year is that we get better going forward. So a lot of these things are just not nipping us in the butt and holding us back when we need to be focused on developing JJ and working as a team to progress to where the Lions were last year, right? Things that I don't want to see this year, I guess we can say, is I don't want to see any blowout losses on from from our side. I don't want to see our team suffer from any blowout losses because then that means the wheels totally fell off, and the consistency that I'm hoping that has been built over the last 2 years, there will be questions for if we start getting a ton of blowout losses. Maybe one or two might be excusable here and there, but overall, what that says to me is that we're not truly through the majority of the growing pains like I thought we were, and we might look to struggle next year, which is what I don't want, right? So I don't want to see any blowout losses, and I want to see the next thing that I want to see going forward is that I want to see Sam to continue to gain confidence. Like it was beautiful to see um, how he started the game. He looked nervous. He looked a little jumpy, but it was like a happy nervous, like oh, like I get to finally put it together, like all the work that I did last year, kind of like a confident nerve, I guess. And then he got a little. There was a couple early mistakes in those first two drives, and then all of a sudden he made one. He made a really nice pass, and then he made another. And then he made an easy pass, and then you could see with every pass he started to get more settled in, and the confidence started to build. So I want to see him develop that ability so that eventually by the end of the season he is just starting with the confidence and he doesn't have to go through that progression every game. And then when it comes to the season, I want to see his confidence grow with every game, win or lose, right? So that we're I don't want to like we as Vikings fans have seen time and time again where we get to a point and the quarterback gets into a really adverse situation and they just shut down. They just refuse to throw the contested ball. They don't have faith in their arm. They don't have faith in the receiver, and they're just hesitant on each throw in those adverse situations in games, late in games, or when the other team is just punching us in the mouth, right? So I want to see him gain confidence throughout each game, so that it doesn't matter when teams punches in the mouth and when adversity hits. The confidence is just going forward and just pushing him through those situations. I really, really think that Josh McCown was a massive factor in his success yesterday. I think that if it wasn't for him in like his mentorship and his just friendship and relationship that he has, I think that built that fire of confidence that Sam has been unable to light by himself over the last few years. And so going into this game where most people anticipated him to see ghosts in that first quarter and just be making mistake after mistake and throwing interceptions, he seemed like, okay, I'm gonna make some mistakes. It's gonna be okay, but I'm not gonna make the worst mistakes like people expect of me. And he didn't. The interception that he threw was all because of the pass rush from Dexter Lawrence. He got a hand on his arm. So, um, like I just want to see that confidence continue to grow. Um, and that just kind of brings me. I think that kind of sums up everything that I had. I went through everything that I wrote down for one, but I think that kind of summarizes everything about yesterday's game and what I internalized from it and what I hope to gain from it and what I want to see going forward. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree with what my analysis and what I'm hoping and my mindset, I guess, or if you just what just let me know what you agree and what you disagree with, and let me know what you guys want to see going forward. If there's anything that I missed, or anything that you think that I should be aware of, that I should be focusing on this team, that I may be that might be in my blind spot. So please leave a comment. Let me know. At the very least, leave a skull, for our team, because that was incredible. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Going forward, I'm going to have this type of video for my Monday, where it's just going to be unedited, off the dome, based off the my really my first impressions. And I'm going to do it on Monday because I don't want to do it right after the game, where I'm when the rose tinted glasses are on, and I just will just start saying the most outlandish and unrealistic things, right? Because I don't want to do that, because I really want to stay grounded, through the evolution of this channel, I guess you could say. So yeah, so I hope you liked it, and I hope you like that going forward. All the other videos throughout the rest of the week are still going to be in my other style, where just in my animated style, I guess, just kind of just trying to give you basically the same, just trying to give you my version of sports commentary and sports news. So I hope you like, and until next time, Skol Vikings.